Italian Wine Podcast. Chin Chin with Italian wine people.
Hello, this is the Italian Wine Podcast. My name is Monty, Waldin. Today's guest is Roddy Ropner. Roddy owns a wine import company based in Hong Kong called Wellsprings Wines. Welcome.
Thank you.
So let's wind back before you got to Hong Kong. What were you doing before then to get into the wine industry?
Well, I came to the wine industry via Christie's, actually. My first career was with Christie's. I spent 20 years there. But
in London, or?
I started in London, and then I moved to Hong Kong, back to London, then to Japan, then to Singapore.
All with Christie's? Always?
All with Christie's. So 20 years with Christie's.
So when did you start with them?
In London, in the Chinese department.
In which year, though?
1987.
Well, that's quite early in the game.
Yes.
Was that as prices were taking off for Bordeaux en Primeur with the sort of Parker 82 vintage, that kind of thing?
Well, actually, no, I was in the Chinese department then. But absolutely, one of the things that I became very aware of when I moved to Asia was the level of interest in wine.
So when you say you're in the Chinese, was that, auctioning paintings and fine art, or was that wine?
Fine art, porcelain, Chinese porcelain. So actually, I spent 20 years as a Chinese art specialist and in management role. And then when I left Christie's, I started doing wine courses.
Studying. So actually, I'd always been interested in wine, but it was having left Christie's and having a bit of time to do what I wanted. That's when I started to become more involved in wine. So why did you leave Christie's? What was the gap?
20 years in one company. Then I thought I'd set up my own business.
Which was an import business for fine art?
No, not at all. I thought I was going to be an art dealer.
You thought you were going to be an art dealer?
Yeah. And then I started to do some wine courses.
So hang on. How did that go? That was obviously skating over that part of your life.
No, it basically, if you work for Christie's, you work pretty much 20 hours a day. You work flat out around the auctions, which happen maybe 4 or 5 times a year. You travel around the world. So you don't have much time to do the things that you wanted to do. So when I left Christie's, I thought, okay, I'll play golf, I'll take wine lessons. And I knew I wasn't going to be a professional golfer. So I started to enjoy the wine lessons. I did WSET level 2, level 3, did the diploma. And during the course of that, somebody said, oh, you seem interested in wine. Why don't we start a wine business? I was in Hong Kong. I said, oh, yes, I know a few people in the wine business. That seems like a good idea. So we started a wine business in Hong Kong about 10 years ago. Hong
Kong 10 years ago, how easy was it for a Westerner to do business there?
I would say, actually, it's very easy to do business in Hong Kong. And perhaps my advantage was that I've actually been going to Hong Kong for the last 35 years plus, so I knew quite a lot of people, and through Christie's I knew quite a lot of people.
And language skills?
Well, I have got a degree in Chinese, and I spent a year in China in 1982, but my Chinese is lousy actually. So in Hong Kong you can get by with English.
That's classic in British university system, isn't it? Just handing out degrees like confetti to complete idiots. You know, I've got a degree in, so I'm a complete idiot in the degree.
What's yours in, Monty?
History and English. I know bugger all about both. Anyway, all right. So you're in Hong Kong, and you decided to give this wine business a go.
Yeah.
So what was your focus initially? Was it just fine wine, or were you importing Muscadet at €1 a litre?
No, absolutely. So the point was to try and find small family-owned producers that we could work with. And the reason for that was that I didn't particularly want to deal with, let's say, sales managers or marketing managers. I wanted to deal with small producers that we could hunt out.
Direct dialogue with a wine grower, not some intermediary.
Exactly. And so we started I suppose classically working with French in Burgundy.
Do they make wine?
Apparently. And then, so at that time, that's what people in Hong Kong were interested in. So I started importing some Bordeaux, and then I moved to Burgundy. And then the sort of, if you want to say, the sort of Italian epiphany was someone said, oh, why don't you go to Barbaresco? It's not unlike Burgundy.
It was part of France, wasn't it?
Well, yes, exactly. So I moved there, had a fantastic tasting at a winery in Barbaresco, in fact. And then a year later, went back to do another tasting, and then met the owner. We started talking about working together. So it really stemmed from that sort of chance.
Was this also at the time when prices for those finer Italian wines were getting due recognition in the market, or were they still competitively priced compared to Bordeaux and Burgundy?
They were competitively priced, and I think what was slightly appealing, and I think perhaps that's sort of what I've always enjoyed, is to be a bit ahead of the curve, particularly as we've just seen in the Barbaresco tasting. It's not as well known as Barolo, but the quality is there.
So for me, it was interesting to find someone that's a good producer that wasn't well known. And it involved obviously a bit more work to explain Barbaresco, but that was perhaps more satisfying.
So when you say getting ahead of the curve, was your decision to study Chinese a strategic move? So a very clever girl at my school who, I must have been, it was probably the early 80s, who was studying Mandarin, and I thought, why would you want to do that? And she's obviously got a career out of it now. Were you the same, or did you just fancy studying an Oriental language?
I think I'd always been interested in Asia. I remember telling my father I was going to study Chinese. He wasn't very happy.
What did he expect you to study? Latin?
No, I think he wanted to do accountancy or something like that, or something sensible. But anyway, so I'd done A-levels in French and Spanish, so I thought I can do those anytime. I can go to France, Spain anytime. China seemed to me very interesting. It was very interesting. But it was, again, perhaps a little too far ahead of the game, because when I graduated, there were not that many jobs involved.
So you bided your time?
I bided my time.
And started selling Barbaresco to the Chinese?
Yes. Well, yes, that's another story. So initially we had planned to do business in China, but it became increasingly obvious that it was much easier to do business in Hong Kong than in China.
So in terms of, was this before the handover, the 97 handover, the British?
No, so this is so I was still at Christie's in 97, so I didn't start the wine business till 2009.
So this was when Hong Kong was again part of China.
Hong Kong has been it's part of China, and things are booming. And of course, the big thing at that time was, I think, 2008. They just dropped the import tariffs. So in fact, wine was on everybody's mind. I mean, the market was booming at that stage.
Prestige wines were popular for what reason at that time?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Before that, the tax had been up to 80%, so they were prestigious. Any wine that was expensive was prestigious, and that was part of the cachet that you could afford the wine.
So if it was expensive, it automatically was prestigious.
It gained some cachet from that.
And what about the gift giving?
In Hong Kong, that's not so much part of it. I mean, there is a lot of gift giving, but it's not to the same extent as in mainland China. But the one thing about Hong Kong is that when the tariffs dropped, the number of importers increased, the number of schools increased, the number of wines coming in increased. We had 2 new MWs. So the level of interest in wine was huge. And people love learning. So there was a lot of, it was a boom time, really.
So you started selling Barbaresco?
Yes.
And then?
My idea actually was to try and do something like along the Bordeaux line, perhaps to take from the different communes, someone from the different communes in Barbaresco, and then maybe do the same thing with Barolo. But actually, the people that I was working with in Barbaresco are quite well known. It's called Marchesi di Cresi. They also have quite a lot of wines. I was quite happy just working with them, and that felt sort of quite comfortable to me.
And now?
Then last year I moved, my wife's Japanese actually, so we moved back to Japan. Basically, I've been living in Asia for about 30-something years and moving every few years, so we decided we'd better settle down. So we decided to settle down. Well, the 2 options were to go back to England or to move to Japan, and you tell me which is a better option.
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been to Japan, so...
Okay. You must come, Monty. So we decided to move to Japan, where I've lived on 3 previous occasions and worked there. So that seemed like a natural fit.
So apart from Barbaresco and Piemonte's wine, are you working with any other regions in Italy for the Hong Kong market?
We did have a Soave, but I think it was just a very commercial...
But if it was a Soave priced at, I don't know, €100 a bottle like a Barbaresco, is it...
No,
it doesn't work like that.
No, I mean the Barbarescos that I was selling were, yes, some were €100. The Soave was basically, my business was selling to people who I would say were interested enough in wine, but Hong Kong's a society where people are time poor. So they call up and say, Roddy, look, I'm having dinner next week. I want a really nice red wine. And the following day's my teenage daughter's party. Give me a cheap white wine. So fine, I've got this nice Soave for you.
Isn't that a bit frustrating, though?
No, not at all, because the advantage for me, generally, in the good thing about the Hong Kong market I found was that, on the whole, people would start off by what have you got, and price would come second. I don't know what that's like in other markets, but I didn't feel that I had to compete with people on price.
And now the market, with the sort of crackdown on this, the sort of, which you mentioned before, the gift-giving culture in China.
Again, I think my whole strategy was not to try and sell to the same people that everyone else is selling to. It's more in that sort of market of people who are interested, but they're busy, they're traveling. So it hasn't really been affected by that. It's perhaps I'm selling mostly to private clients, so it's more affected by things like expatriates leaving.
Are we talking about people that work in the finance industry? They get reposted, or
yeah, exactly that sort of thing. Lawyers, bankers.
But they sort of, I mean, this is a bit of a generalisation, but again, is it just about the status symbol? I want an expensive Italian wine, or I want a particular Barbaresco or Barolo.
I think once you get to that level, spending €100 a bottle, people are incredibly knowledgeable. And the great thing about Hong Kong was that you've got things like the Hong Kong Wine Society, for example, where they have these amazing tastings that people are allowed to go to, but there's a huge interest in learning, and there's some very knowledgeable people there.
Isn't one of the advantages of working with Italian wine, this kind of seems quite ironic, given the horrendous sort of scandals that have affected the fine wine market, particularly for red Bordeaux and Burgundy with fakery. Yeah. We won't mention any names, but there have been convictions of real sort of household names almost in the wine industry of famous Bordeaux, and that doesn't really seem to have happened so much with people trying to imitate Barolo and Barbaresco, because they are not as expensive as Latour or Lafite or Le Pin. Has that been an advantage, do you think, or does that not really enter into the equation?
I'm sure that in the 2000s, sort of with a huge rise in prices of Bordeaux and then Burgundy, 10, 11, 12, those sort of, at that time, people started to look elsewhere. I don't think that it was a question so much of faking in Hong Kong, although that issue has been raised later. But I think it was a question of price. Suddenly people think, who've been collecting Bordeaux, think, do I really want to pay 300, 400, 500 euros a bottle when there's plenty of other good wines out there to buy?
Yeah. Do you think that's going to be the future course in terms of the global economy?
I could definitely see that happening. Just the way the prices have gone for first for Bordeaux and then for Burgundy, people start looking around and then they think, okay, so it's Italy at the moment, but why, Spain next, or
Isn't that one advantage of working in the fine art market? If you spend a lot of money on a Monet, for example, you have it for life. Yeah. And unless you do something really stupid, it's just not going to deteriorate. You can always enjoy it. You can always look at it. With a flipping bottle of wine, you open it and it's corked, or it's been adulterated, or it was just terrible wine in the first place. It got overrated by some not know-it-all critic.
I was in the Chinese porcelain department, so there's always a danger that someone will break your vase. I suppose that could be a problem.
Or drop your bottle.
Yes.
Your prediction of Italian wine in general in China, I mean, not just talking about the fine wine market, but just in general, is there the consumer knowledge base there where consumers will, or the mechanisms by which people can learn about the Italian wine, so the difference between Chianti and Barbaresco, and Barbaresco and Barolo?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, that's really the appeal of doing this course.
The Italian Wine Academy course?
Yes. This is the first course and set of material that I've seen that can really help people to learn more. And people are desperate to learn. As Ian keeps saying, there haven't been that many good books recently. And so I use Ian's book to actually not only to learn, but to go and visit producers, not looking to import their wine, but just to go and taste the wines and taste the grapes, see what they should be like.
Do you see your activity morphing into something a little bit different in the future in China and Hong Kong?
No, I think now that I've moved to Japan, the market there is so different to Hong Kong, so I'm still sort of investigating that market.
So what's the difference? I mean, in terms of organics, they're very, very strict. I think they're one of the strictest countries to export organic wine to, because they're really tough regulations about labelling and everything.
Yes, and I think there's some things that, some like sorbic acid, they don't allow wines with sorbic acid into the country. But for my own position, I don't think you're being an importer there. I'm thinking more perhaps of doing something along the lines of wine education. That being said, I say that the Japanese sort of the current interest in wine stems back probably to the early 70s, so it's a little bit earlier than Hong Kong. Hong Kong's 7.5 million people, Japan's 127 million people, so you've got a different scale, and their level of knowledge is as good as anyone's, and particularly people who mentioned Bordeaux and Burgundy in particular, but there are a lot of people who are very knowledgeable about Italian wines as well. But I still don't think that necessarily there's the material that we've got, like in Italy International Academy, available to people yet. So that's what I'm hoping perhaps we might be able to promote Italian wine through these courses.
From fine art to talking about Chianti Classico.
Or
Barbaresco. Or Vino di Tavola. Or Soave.
or whatever.
or the 550 grapes.
Or the 550 grapes, yeah, which are very, very hard to... and why the name Wellspring? What did you call it?
It came about because when we started in Hong Kong, actually I had a Chinese partner, and I said, since we're going to be selling to Chinese people, you choose the name in Chinese, and it had to do with bamboo groves and springs and whatever. So I can't call that a company like that. So we'll just do Wellspring wines.
Right. Okay. We're glad we got that one sorted out. Just want to say thanks to Roddy Ropner of Wellspring Wines, based in Hong Kong, former art dealer,
Specialist.
Sorry,
Auction
specialist. I'm not like making you sound like you're sort of selling Monets in the back of your your truck.
I wish I was.
French roulette. I can't. Sorry.
No, I think it's a very respectable profession, but it's a very different profession. So.
Yeah. I just want to say thanks to Roddy Ropner of Wellspring Wines in Hong Kong. Thanks for coming in, and hopefully we'll be able to follow your progress with either fine Italian wine or non-fine Italian wine in Hong Kong, Japan, etc. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Follow Italian Wine Podcast on Facebook and Instagram.